Welcome to Speaking of Crypto with your host, Shannon Grinnell.
So it was great to meet you at that Ethereum event in Brooklyn.
Yeah, that was a great show. That was definitely a super unique experience to see stuff in a gallery and then auctioned and sent to a new home. That was just a surreal experience.
Yeah, tell me about how it worked for you. So I didn't see so much of your side of things. I got to see some of your artwork there. But what was your purpose for going there in the first place?
I would say it was kind of a twofold experience. Part of it, it's a charity auction. So portion was hosting this, and part of it was an Ethereum. I think it's like an educational grant that they're raising money for. So first off, you're basically supporting grants for crypto artists. So I felt like I was helping somebody just like me who needed that extra funding to get their projects done. So it was a great reason to get involved. There was also a great opportunity to meet people directly in Ethereum, and just networking and sharing, and being the artist in the room is a little bit of a anomaly, which is fun to bring up. It's not code talk as much or money.
Yeah. So, and I do want to get into that, like how you got from sort of art into blockchain art. But I also wanted to mention, for those who aren't huge Ethereum fans, that you were also at the Bitcoin conference in San Francisco. So are you full on, Bitcoin? You're not a Bitcoin maximalist, obviously, but you support different blockchains.
Yeah, I do. I think it's more the total ecosystem that I support. There's good projects and bad projects, but I've gotten to, I think, be around Ethereum a lot more because of different events and hackathons and things like that. And then the BTC show was so unique because I haven't met that group. It's kind of a tribal a community we're in. So getting to meet those people and have new conversations and see what is going on in that world was equally just riveting and really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't you maybe take us back and can you just let us know where things got started for you? Like, why don't you start with in the art world and how you got interested in art in the first place?
I would say it's pretty funny, actually. I never thought of myself as someone who would end up doing art, but it kind of changed in high school. I had a really great graphic design teacher in high school, and I made a magazine. And being able to make a magazine in high school and seeing that passion spark, it just made me want to do more of that. I wasn't into science, I wasn't into math, and I had to do something that kind of fed my soul. So, I chose to go to art school, and it was the best decision ever. And
just for your magazine cover, was it, did you do something on Illustrator or Photoshop? Were you using some kind of online program, or was this like cut and paste?
no, I would say I think it was the first iteration of Photoshop was around back then. So it was pretty crude. Actually, my very first experience with graphic design was the old Mac cubes, like the little light tan boxes.
Okay.
There was a paint program. I remember clicking a button, and it made the whole screen a brick wall, and that blew my mind. So these little things, even as a child, kind of soaked into my head, and it just made me want to experiment and do more.
Yeah, and then so through this art teacher and doing the projects in high school, then you ended up going to art school. And where did you go?
I went to art school in Southern California at Cal Poly Pomona, and I had some really great teachers who pushed me, and their philosophy was learn by doing. So it was more experimental based and not stuck reading books about theory. It was actually testing a hypothesis, and by doing that, you you would come to the conclusion of what the theory was.
Yeah, it's so great. I think that's the advantage of, I mean, we'll see what happens with online learning and where education is going to go in the future, but that practical hands-on, I think is totally invaluable. I went to film school. It was a very practical education. We made films, and then I was doing a master's in film, and all of a sudden it became very theoretical. And I
Sure.
this is for people who want to end up living in New York and their life is going to be like a Woody Allen movie. Like, it's professors talking to other people with PhDs and, it's just this esoteric conversation. And I thought, I think I just want to do more so than sort of study people who did things.
Yeah.
You had that practical hands-on. So what kind of things were you working with in your art program? What kind of things were you actually doing and making?
So it was a fine art degree that I got. So there was definitely a lot of tactile mediums. I took typography classes where I would draw letters. My homework would be to draw the letter Q 100 times by tomorrow morning. And you learn
Q or
like the lowercase q. Like we had to learn the whole alphabet. So I literally know every single X height and every nerdy thing about typography because I had to draw it by hand. So that was that. I don't think that happens as much anymore. I was kind of in this limbo land between digital graphics and fine art graphics.
right.
So I would do, collage classes where we would do screen printing. We would just do texture grinding. You'd get a brick and you'd rub graphite over the top of it to get your textures. It's very primitive, and I still love doing stuff like that.
That's awesome. So do you think that then comes into your work now? Is there something that you sort of carry forward with, I don't know, is it like, do you like to play with textures? It looks like that with your art that you're showcasing these days.
Yeah, there's a fine line, and I think being mutually exclusive doesn't allow you to sometimes get the best result. So there will be times where I'm working on a digital piece and it needs, whether it's a paper choice, if it needs to have like a thick watercolor paper to accent the design, that enhances an art project to a different level. So it's
you use the actual physical watercolor paper?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's just different decisions you make, and that's probably the last decision that you often would make, is what kind of paper am I going to print it on. But if you can kind of plan it out in your head ahead of time, you can form this this feeling into a piece of art a whole lot easier than just designing it in Photoshop and hitting print on the laser printer and it comes out. It's different. There's a different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like there's sort of a lot of layering and, different ideas come in at different times as you're sort of composing something, I guess.
Yeah. And then also on top of that, it's taking so many courses on art history and just learning about everything from Rembrandt all the way through Warhol, and every single movement that taught the other movements what to do. We can cherry pick through history, and on different projects I will tap into the Dada movement in Switzerland and Germany. Like for my portrait series, there's a lot of graphical silliness that goes into that, and you have to allow that to be okay.
Yeah. Do you want to give an overview of what Dada is for people who might not have that sort of background?
Yeah, so Dada was a reaction to what was going on, I would say, with formal art, in terms of, if you were being a classical master and you knew how to perfectly render a scene. This is the exact opposite of that. They would use, an eyeball for the whole face, or they would just do these avant-garde things back in, I think it was the 20s, that people just were not comfortable looking at because they'd never seen that. and it carried through performance art. It carried through music. There's a huge Swiss and German graphic design movement around it. And as a modern artist, I was able to kind of pick and choose and tap into that and make art that way.
Yeah, so your art's definitely modern. Are there any artists in particular that really inspired you? You're talking about different movements and you can kind of pick and choose, but any you wanted to sort of mention?
I really love, he's from the 50s and 60s, Robert Rauschenberg. He was a collage artist around the same time as Warhol and like Jasper Johns, those types of people. I love Robert Rauschenberg. He's very gritty. He did screen printing and assemblages. He had like a goat's head with a tire around it. And, you know, there's some huge, amazing story behind it, but to look at that in a gallery, it's, to me, that is just like a stroke of odd brilliance. I appreciate that type of art. And also Kandinsky, who is like point, line, and plane. It's very much geographic or geometric in design. I love that type of abstraction.
Me too, yeah, awesome. And what about, maybe we can just talk about, so how did you get into crypto? Because seems like a completely different world. One would think, you know, in the real world, most people wouldn't think that art and cryptography would ever collide, or as you're saying, like finance and, you know, that kind of thing. So how did you get into it?
I got into it in a cliche way, you know, learning about the technology of Ethereum. I'm just a techie nerd. I don't know how to code anything past, you know, CSS. I know a little bit of web design, but I was able to kind of see what Ethereum was hoping to do, and as they grew, and I followed that.
Yeah, and what year are we talking about when you
2016, I started getting into just the ecosystem, you know, just loose browsing and just being curious about what was going on, because there wasn't a large real scene going on, especially with art. There's a couple people like Crypto Graffiti, but there wasn't what it is now. So it took me a while to kind of put the worlds together. But as an artist, I wanted to contribute to what was going on. So instead of coding, I just decided, you know, start making pictures that kind of talked about my own journey and, you know, the feelings that we're all sharing being in this space.
Yeah. So what did you start with? What kind of inspired you to make your first piece that was crypto related?
The first piece, so I do stereoscopic art, which uses 3D glasses. So it already has that tinge of technology to it. There's a little bit of a niche to it. And so I took a stereoscopic piece and I created a collage where it was an astronaut and there was a moon, and I was able to create the depth of the astronaut flying through this dystopic landscape up towards the moon. So there's references without being overtly crypto, if that makes sense. Because I don't want to make cliche art. You know, that's never an option. It needs to be a piece of art, and then it can have references inside of it.
Yeah, and I think from what I've seen, I mean, it looks like your personality is really a part of your work. Like I felt like when I first met you, I thought, oh, it looks like you in your artwork, and I don't know how to describe that. There was a picture of Vitalik, which doesn't look like you, but it looked like you. It looked like, I don't know, something that came from you, I guess. So the other question I wanted to ask around art and, you know, crypto is, you know, how do you see these two things working together? Why is there a market for art and crypto combined, or blockchain?
I think there's a couple different avenues that art's gonna help with the crypto space. I think in terms of making crypto or making art that's crypto themed is actually more of an educational tool, I think, for a lot of people who haven't been exposed to what it is. So I'm my own guerrilla marketer for the space, where when I'm at an art show and I strike up a conversation about, say, the Vitalik piece, first of all, they don't know who this person is. They don't understand.
Regular art worlds, like galleries and things like
Yeah,
that.
it's completely foreign. And then they might get drawn in, by the aesthetics of the 3D. But then once you start talking to them about who this person is, what he's helping build, and the technology behind it, it's seed planting for a whole huge world that it's a word of mouth society we're in. If you recommend something to someone else, that is usually what moves the Richter scale. So I'm trying to make things that help move that forward.
Yeah, I think it's a great way in for, some people who have no idea, I guess. And are there some pieces that are kind of more popular or, let's say, just to the general public, and then there are some that are more people who are more crypto are interested in? Do you find that people are drawn to certain things versus another?
There's two pieces right now that I would say are getting different reactions. One of them is a gold miner piece that I did, where there's an actual picture from, it must have been the late 1800s when they started taking pictures, but there was an actual gold miner that I put a gas mask on, and I put the fiat symbol on the gas mask, and he's literally mining a river of fiat currencies. And in the background, there's chemtrails in the sky, and there's some cultural references going on inside of this piece, and it's easy for people to understand a gold miner doing work, right? So I would say at an art show, that's an easy conversation to start having. But then it gets really deep really quick when you explain what they're mining and what it's all about. So that's its own, piece by its own.
Yeah, it's super cool. I know the one that you're talking about. It's really great. We'll have to put links to these in the show notes so everyone can take a look at these pieces that you're talking about. But yeah, what's really cool is a lot of things in crypto are not theoretical, but they're like in cyberspace, right? When you talk about them, it's hard to associate them. If you don't know code and you're not reading code on the screen, then how do you understand what a blockchain looks like, or what mining looks like, or what Satoshi looks like? And you're able to, create an image for these things that are important ideas that are happening in this, what I think is this whole counterculture movement. So these images, right now, because there are so few artists, are starting to become more and more iconic and representative of these times.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any favorite pieces of yours?
I think my favorite pieces are the portraits I'm doing. So far I've done, I can't say they're finished, but I've done Vitalik, Buterin, and Andreas Antonopoulos. And in a nutshell, the project it's called Decentral Eyes, and it's a play on the word decentralized. And what it is I'm sourcing 10 different pictures or more of each person and clipping an ear off of one, a mouth, a nose, a forehead, the whole portrait. I'm taking from a variety of sources and then recombining those into a decentralized portrait, and then putting my own stereoscopic skills on top of that. So it pops out when you look at a lenticular, the image pops off the printed plane. So it's truly experimental, and it's fascinating to create these things because I've never done them. This is like I'm learning just as much as anyone else right now. I'm always pushing myself to fail, really. I'm pushing it to the limit and then pulling back as needed to get that successful piece.
That's awesome. I mean, you're sort of describing the creative process, sounds like, and your creative process. Do you have any issues with copyright if you're taking even pieces of something from one place and another? Do you have to ever worry about that?
Well, that's kind of where it's speared from was, Shepard Fairey, who did the Obama poster. He got in a whole lot of trouble because he took the whole image and made a poster out of it. So, as an artist who read up on that and was definitely aware of how that could impact me, I basically found the greatest loophole of there's no way to say an ear is not the photo. There's no part of that ear that can be sellable to the picture itself. They're completely separate entities. So by clipping apart a fraction of 10 different pictures, there's no way that can be construed as ownership.
Yeah, so it's not the same as like music sampling, where if you take like 4 bars of something, right? That's very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, that's a good point. I should call that. I'm visually sampling. That's wonderful. I can use that.
Sure.
Thank you. But that's exactly what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, seems that way. And then you said maybe they're not finished yet. Like, how do you call something finished? When have you decided, like, okay, that's it, I have to stop, tinkering with it anymore?
I would say for the printed pieces, it's easier to say it's finished because the production of it all is a lot more finite. There's a print run of each of the prints. There's 50 of them, and I tried to keep the numbers low so that they're collectible, but so that everyone could own one that wanted it. But once those are printed, that's it. They have to look the same. That's a series. But when you start playing with digital tokens, then I'm able to mess around with things, and I've started doing these one-off versions that are different from each other. They're variation prints. So if you're into Vitalik, I think I've done 4 different variation prints off the main one, and those are just equally as collectible, maybe more so, because there's one. And each one of those is me designing, and in the process of doing it, I'm always self-auditing and just checking. I'm always checking what's going on. And each one of those were moments where I took a step back and said, wow, that's totally random and not what the finished piece is, but that is a piece of art. So then I will capture that moment, tokenize it, and then keep going with the total plan.
Yeah, can you give an example of like what you're talking about when you were like, oh, in that moment, like it was a random moment? Can you share with us something specific?
Yeah, so early on with the Vitalik one, I had loosely blocked out the different pieces of his face, and now I was working on the code that was going to go behind him as like one of the depth layers.
Right.
And as I was pasting the solidity code, and I was making sure you could kind of read the code as it jumped around, because a developer would actually care about that. So I would want it to be authentic, right? So I was doing that whole thing, and at one point I copied all the text on the screen, and in Photoshop, when you copy text, it will create a negative over the top of it. It'll invert everything. So I just hit Control A and copied everything, and I just saw the screen. I was like, whoa, this was it felt very Warhol, or very just gritty and techie and weird. And I observed it, and I appreciated it, and I saved that, and I just kept moving. Like there's a little side folder of variant thoughts.
Right.
And then I ended up tokenizing that, and it's a one of one. So if, it's for the collector who likes rare artwork.
Yeah, so a couple things. So mainly you're working in Photoshop sort of as your like workspace generally. Is that what you're using? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, I'll do some illustration and Illustrator, and then my own, like the 3D programs I use are just super nichey and cumbersome, but those are the ones that help convert the Photoshop into a three-dimensional image.
Yeah.
So there's probably like five programs I use.
And then how is it that you make something unique? And when it's unique, you've tokenized it. This is now like an NFT, is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So Ethereum, when they first started doing their tokens, I'm not a developer, so I'm shooting from the hip at that point. But they did ERC20 tokens, right? That was your ICO model, and that was the very beginning of tokenization in terms of art. And Rare Art Labs is a platform that was super early on, and they were my first platform that I joined, and their tokens are ERC20 based. And then the next iteration of that is ERC 721 tokens, and that's a non-fungible token. That means, you can't change it. It's just it's its own entity.
Mm.
So a lot of my artworks are NFT Ethereum tokens.
Hmm. Yeah, and like, what's the advantage of having something registered on blockchain as this NFT, for a piece of art, do you think?
As I would say, as a digital artist, if you were to tell somebody 10 years ago that they could make money off of digital art, they would kind of laugh at you, because there is no way to really protect somebody from screenshotting or right click saving and saying that they owned it, because at that point the file was the ownership.
Mhm.
But now with the NFT, the picture is a representation of the token. So it frees me up. I want to share my picture everywhere. There's no longer a need to watermark it. I'll always put my name at the bottom, because that's just, you got to sign your art. But besides that, it's now a marketing piece, instead of it being its own entity.
Yeah, and which I think it's pretty amazing that digital art has come this far. And then I guess the other cool thing that I can see maybe in 10 years or so is, because all of this great art is being tokenized or, sort of verified unique. If you want to sell it to someone else, it's probably going to go up in value, just like all art does, because it's one of a kind, or it's rare, and then you can also use the token, like you'll be able to actually sell it pretty seamlessly to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that I think is pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's been some of the marketplaces that have popped up have gotten really good traction, especially Super Rare. I have probably the lion's share of my artwork is currently on Super Rare. And there's collectors, there's avid whale art collectors. There's people who own 250 pieces of crypto art, and there's multiples of those people, and they're just rabid, and they're betting on the future too. Like they're seeing this revolution we're living in, and I think that they see the value of what that's going to be in 10 years. And
10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now, these are such early days. And, if you were a Bitcoin billionaire, what else are you going to put on the walls? Like, yes,
yep,
you might put, some kind of modern art, but wouldn't it be cool to have really great crypto art, that will increase in value as well?
yeah, that's the fun part, is I'll meet some people that, in other worlds, to find somebody who has that type of passion for a movement. And like you said, they have huge empty walls, and to be able to, like, it's kind of a piece of all of us, is this piece of art. In 20 years we're going to look back, and we can understand what we were going through at that time. And so when I make art, I'm trying to create a piece of art that is a snapshot of right now, so that when that person does want to buy it, it's more emotional than just visual. There's a story behind that for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, what are some of the stories that you're working on now, or that you're kind of excited about and you want to capture, or, you know, in the near future for the crypto space, and just where we're at right now?
I'm always experimenting, and like I said, like almost trying to fail, because that's usually where I actually learn something. So there's been a project that I've had in my head for at least 10 years, and I just released it. It's a t-shirt project where I took 2 t-shirts and I cut them in half and I re-sewed them together. So I guess it's a decentralized t-shirt. I mean, I don't want to get cliche with this, but you know, I'm recombining things.
Yeah.
And I had the idea 10 years ago, not related to crypto, but it was just in my head. It was incubating and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I just said, now's the time. And I have a passion and a material that I want to create. So I'm tokenizing physical t-shirts as art. So it's tokenized wearable artwork that's super rare. And just for no reason, just because why not try it and see what happens?
Yeah. Did you actually physically sew the t-shirts yourself? They're kind of sewed on a diagonal, I think, right?
Yeah, they're cut on a diagonal, and I have this really good seamstress who is like good at sewing. You know, I could hack it together, but I wanted to make it through the wash, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I had somebody, you know, I tested them out. I verified that they could do my weird idea, because I took it to them and they said, "You want me to do what?"
So
I
great.
said, "Just go with me on this." And by the end of it, they were all about it. You know,
Oh, great.
so I'm collaborating. You know, I'm collaborating with some fashion guy, and that's just something weird and fun.
Yeah, so it's like blue on one side. Is it blue on the other side as well, or like a
So
little?
it's Nate. Well, there's a couple different colors. The first one's in the Theorems Shirt, so it's a navy blue, a logo collage, and then there's a gray on the other side. That's the Solidity code.
Okay.
So there's a whole creative process of how does it work when you cut the shirt in half. You want the design to look good on both sides.
Because
So it
the
was a
crosses the seam, doesn't it?
the shirts are printed separately, and then you cut and sew them. So the print just ends at the seam line.
Interesting. So cool.
Yeah, so I'm having fun with that one. That's definitely out of my comfort zone, and it leads to new things. You know, now I'm getting into, I want to start sewing posters together. You know, there's just different, you know, it's just the way the process works. It always leads to something else.
Love it. Well, one of your experiments that you were explaining to me was this sort of painting with light.
Mm.
I went to film school, and so we talk about cinematographers painting with light, but it's not what you're doing. It's very, very interesting. So, you want to explain the process and what you were able to do with these sort of flashlights and, you know, in the dark? It's really, really a cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad we talked about that. So me and a good friend of mine, he was actually one of the best 3D comic book artists of all time. And we met through 3D, and he taught me how to do kick-ass layering in 3D. But besides that, he was a wild man. And he, yeah, he taught me about light painting, as well as another photographer that I was friends with at the time. And we would go out camping, and we would bring colored LED flashlights, and we would, in the pitch black, you know, you can't start this until there's no stars in the sky, or no light.
Light, basically. So you're
No
kind of
light.
in, you know, the desert, basically, or somewhere.
Yep. So I live up in the hills in Northern California, so we'd go to desolation. You know, we would go to the middle of nowhere, and I would bring my 3D camera, and you can do this with a regular camera, but since I do 3D, why not do this all in 3D? So it's a long exposure photograph. So when you hit the trigger into like the bulb setting that just like keeps the frame open,
Yeah.
the picture stays black until light is introduced into the field.
And I understand this because I understand film. Like when, I started photography, you actually shot stuff on film. So, really nothing's exposed until light hits it. So the same, I guess, is true in the digital world, like
Yeah.
there's light. So you've got this, frame goes open, and then usually when we click a shutter, it just goes open, close, or it's like a tiny fraction of a second, 1/25th of a second, or whatever it is. But you're saying shutter goes wide open, and then with the light,
Yep.
you do what with your flashlights?
So I would say the exposure time, if you're gonna like paint a little mental picture of what I'm gonna be doing here. So as I tell the story, it'll make more sense. You hit the button and you're gonna have about maybe 2 minutes of time. So what you're doing with that 2 minutes is beforehand, you're kind of talking to each other about what you want to accomplish. Then as soon as you hit the triggers, you have to execute this. And that's like painting, you're dragging your flashlights in the air and you're making either abstract geometrical shapes or you're coloring a car. We've done some classic cars with our lights, and you do your performance art, and you very much look like a total weirdo. If anybody were to walk by, you're looking like people with flashlights in the pitch dark dancing, and it's the most freeing thing I've ever done. But after those 2 minutes are over, we would run to the back of the camera and wait for the camera to process this massive amount of data. So we would sit there and wait because we didn't know what was going to happen. And then literally after that picture would pop on the screen, we would just scream in excitement for whatever it was, because you can't do that thing again. It's totally experimental. So that was, I'm just
a unique, non-fungible piece of art.
totally, yeah, no one could rip that off. They couldn't grab their own flashlight. I couldn't even recreate what we did.
Oh, it's amazing. And will you have images that you can share with us? Will we be able to see some of those?
Oh yeah, whatever you want.
Or somewhere online, if we can just link to that.
Yeah, definitely. I've tokenized some of the cars that we've done. We did a bucket T model car that we light painted. I've done those digital and physical, and also a couple other pieces. One of them that I'll link to, it's called The One, because we did it in one take. It was me standing on a hill with a lasso of rope lights that was swinging around my head, and my friend was running around me with sparklers, and it just turned out beautiful. It was just like stunning, and we never tried to do it again. We just like saw that and we said, okay, that one's done. What should we do next? So it's beautiful abstract art.
Very, very cool. I love it. And what do you think will be sort of the next big experiment? Like, you said you're kind of straddling these two worlds, right? You're in the art world and you're in the crypto world. So are you looking for crypto to inspire you, or do you look to other artists to inspire you?
I think it's a little bit of both. Right now I've been meeting so many artists that we're collaborating just on different tools that we're all learning about. So Josie, I don't know if you've seen her artwork, but she is working with augmented reality on a lot of her pieces. So you'll hold a phone up to the artwork, and then it'll trigger basically a video animation on top of that artwork. And everyone is so open with their ideas. There's no competition that I've seen. We all just are sharing and collectively raising each other up. I think we're all feeling the same, that it's going to take all of us to raise the tides. You know, if one crypto artist were to make it, that would be a massive failure. You know, there's so many different ways of looking at this movement that we all want each other to get exposure and grow. It only helps each other. So I've been learning just all kinds of stuff like that.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, and I think with artists as well, like if an artist is true to themselves, then they're going to be unique just by the nature of finding their own creativity. So it's difficult to imagine artists competing with each other because you're so your own person and your art can only come from you, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the only competition would probably be your internal ego at a certain, you know, if that became an issue. But, you know, to make art is actually, I think, a selfless act in a sense. It's, you know, you have to be vulnerable. You have to take chances, and you have to make something that matters to you. Because if you're making something for someone else, you might as well, you know, just be like a production artist. You know, there's just, why are you making art in the first place? I think that's the question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So then why are you doing it? If you're doing it for selfish reasons, why are you choosing crypto? What is it that you, I mean, believe in, or what are you excited about with crypto and blockchain technology?
I think it's kind of the first factor is I love technology and I love art, and finding that merge has always been elusive to me. There wasn't ever an audience there. I mean, my art in general is very nichey, and finding an audience that, first of all, just likes stereoscopic 3D art is a unique bunch. And crypto people, they like technology, so it's easy to have that talk about how the hell did I make this thing, and then I can ask them, how the hell did you make your smart contract? You know, then that's a communication line. That's awesome. And besides that, it's just the creative process. I'm always making art, and I'd rather make art about something I'm passionate about and that I can teach people about, and just keep growing through constant experimentation.
Yeah. So why are you passionate about crypto?
I'm a very positive person with the way that I live my life, and I see that there's a possibility that crypto could lead to a better future for the world. And I think, as someone who's in the space, I mean, there's 1,000 different people working in crypto, and I think if we each can focus on the outcomes that we want, we can steer that. And I think, as a positive person, I am pushing the positive sides of what I want this future to be. And it's like the butterfly effect. If I can project my little piece of positivity out there, I think it can have a greater impact than, you know, a picture on a wall. You know, I think it's a big thing that's going on, and I think it could go either way. It could be used for nefarious reasons. Any technology, anything can be used for good or bad, but I want good. So I choose to put goodness into my art, and I think that'll spread more value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. What do you think about Donald Trump tweeting about Bitcoin? This just happened. Was it this week? Crypto moves so fast.
Oh yeah.
Was it last week? No, I think it was
I
actually.
think that was like 2 years ago now. No. I think it's good. I mean, if you want to talk about somebody who gets the waters rocking, it would be that guy. So, for better or worse, they say any press is good press. So the fact that he said it to tens of millions of people, might have been the first time they heard it. So that is a seed planting that will just grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he has reasons for bringing it up, and I think they're probably scared shitless, and maybe he just started mouthing off. I don't really care. You know, I'm not super political, but I think it's a great pulpit to start getting it out there into the mainstream.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Well, in fact, it has been with, different celebrities sort of coming forward and talking about Bitcoin as well, or crypto, and just, piquing their interest, right?
Yeah, I think it's anyone. I mean, Kim Kardashian had, she was going through her Bitcoin phase, and I think a lot of people use it for a reason to be current and just get attention, because that's what I think a lot of our pop culture is, a bunch of little 5-minute segments that they're putting together. But if that's the way that they want to promote the future, that's fine with me, because a bunch of 100 million Kim Kardashian fans, if they all bought tiny slivers of Bitcoin, then that's mass adoption.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Well, speaking of mass adoption, what do you think about Facebook's Libra project? Where do you see that going?
I think it's it opens up the conversation. It's gonna teach a whole bunch of lawmakers what's going on, and I think it's gonna create a faction of different users. There's gonna be people who just want to send money on Facebook, and they might be able to get away from fiat currency that way, even though it's pegged in value. But I think once that happens, it's almost the rabbit hole, right? You take that first step and you say, oh, there's value besides this paper money I have. And if that's Libra is the next step, then the next step is going to be crypto, or a true decentralized crypto. So I think it's good.
Do you think we'll be in a world where there is no paper money?
Oh yeah, I think by design, that's the way the world will move, and I think that's kind of what I was talking about the positive side of things, is you could be tracked literally to death by digital currency, and I think that it just makes more sense for a global economy to have a a global standard. And I'm by no means a New World Order fan. I definitely am anti that. But I think that there's going to be a reason that every country doesn't have its own currency. And I think Bitcoin, whether that's a store of value or what its total purpose is, I think people around the world are going to want to hedge into something that's not based on like how their government's doing, because you're almost buying stock in a government when you're holding fiat.
Yeah, it's a great way to describe it. Absolutely. If you're trusting your government, you're trusting the government currency, you're putting your money in it, then it is. It's like buying stock.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Venezuela, like those people were really trusting their government, and that let them down, and so they're politically making their investment decisions by going into crypto, and those people who have done that are still living. Like that's a major difference.
Starving or managed to get out of the country.
It's awful. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think is someone that's inspiring to you in the crypto space? You've already mentioned that you have portraits of Vitalik and Andreas Antonopoulos. Are there other people who are inspiring or maybe thinking about doing for your portraits?
It's really something I think about all the time, because I think when you make a portrait of somebody, you are inevitably giving them some type of power. Like I went to an Andy Warhol portrait exhibit, and you look at these people on the wall, and they're made into these, it's like the ethos of, they're giving them new life. So I think very hard about who I would want to put on a poster. And in crypto, that's a hard decision. There's a lot of bad actors out there, and I have to basically invest in that face. I'm thinking, is this guy a bad actor? Is this going to be a faux pas in 10 years? I haven't done a physical version, but I did John McAfee because he was just so polarizing. And he is, I wouldn't call him a villain of the space, but he's like a provocateur where he shook things up more than anyone else. So if I were to do the good and bad side, he's kind of in the gray area of somebody that I don't have a problem putting on a picture because of this moment in time. If you said John McAfee, everyone's like, oh yeah, duh. It's like, okay, that's an okay decision.
Yeah,
The
he's
other person,
definitely an icon in this space.
yeah, yeah,
If you hate him, he's a figure that's really vocal. So
yeah. So he's been done a little bit, and the other person who I have already started doing is Edward Snowden. He's going to be probably the next full run, whether it's digital and print. There's different levels to the series, but I'm going to do a physical and a digital version of Snowden, and that really came from the conference, the BTC conference in San Francisco. He did a live stream, and everybody in that room was glued to what he was saying, and it was all nuggets of gold. And when he said that he paid for his servers with BTC, and that was like a true use case of anonymous decentralization, that just hit me hard. I was like, wow, this guy actually put himself on the line and used a currency, and it worked. And to me, he's the user. He's like the first. He's not Andreas, he's not Vitalik, but he's the public using the currency, right, at a high level.
absolutely.
He's a use case.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great one. Yeah, I think it'd be great to see a portrait of him, and I think he's very iconic and now very important to the space, especially after his talk there at that conference. Yeah, I love it. Where do you see crypto art maybe 10 or 20 years from now?
I think it's kind of a precursor to everything being digitized and tokenized. I think the artists that are in it right now, it's a little bit more of a Wild West where we can just experiment and kind of pave that path. But I think in 10 years from now, every image that's in a digital magazine will have tokenized usage rights. There's going to be more of everything is going to be accounted for, which is good.
Yeah, explain that just for a sec, which is tokenized usage rights. So if someone, a magazine publisher wants to use your image, let's say a Vitalik, then they would sort of automatically be sending you crypto based on, what's affiliated with that image. Is that right?
Yeah, and I can't say that platform's been made yet. I'm looking for it if you've heard of that, but I think that's one of the things that needs to be done.
Yeah, well,
But
content creators for DTube or Steemit, and
yep,
content's going through over the internet, and people are getting micropayments from one person to another. So
sure.
you would think that it will happen, right? Like you're saying, digital. It may not be a magazine, a physical magazine, but it could be
Yeah.
online.
Yeah, there's some projects like Poet, and there's definitely some different projects that are starting to go after content creation. And there's no doubt in my mind that, because I work as a commercial artist as well, and I know that when I purchase a photograph from a photographer, there's a lot of trust, because first of all, I have to tell that photographer I'm going to use their photo. I could just use the photo and wait for him to find me, but in this new economy, there won't be that option. I will
wait for him to sue you as well.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
A lot of photographers and artists don't get paid because people just go to Google and steal their images all over the place.
Yep. So I'm conscious about that, and as an artist, I see that revenue stream as being huge. It's what they call like mailbox money, where there's a contract, and if they want to use it, you automatically get paid, and it cuts down on negotiations and contract disputes and all that nasty stuff that artists don't want to deal with.
So you'll see that coming in the future? And anything else? I interrupted you. Is there something else that you wanted to?
I think there's a lot of movement with art provenance where physical pieces are being put on the blockchain. I think that's just way better than some gallery scribbling notes on a note card that, in 100 years will be brought to auction and told that this is a real piece of art. Now it's digitized.
Yeah, which I understand, like up until now, so how many centuries even have artworks been made, and then it's an actual paper ledger, I understand, with
Oh yeah.
millions and millions of dollars worth, paintings, right?
Yep. And with that, the forgeries that go unknown, that's some investor plunks down $100 million thinking they bought a Rembrandt, but it was painted in Italy 50 years ago, or whatever, right? So now it gives confidence to the art collector as well, which
Right.
I'm just kind of waiting for that surge to happen.
Yeah, makes sense. I have some fun questions, but maybe before we get to them, is there anything else you wanted to share with us, or?
Not particularly. I think there's a huge opportunity for anybody to get involved. I happen to be an artist, so I make pictures, but anybody who loves this space and wants to see it grow needs to put in their own sweat equity, because it's all of us that will make it succeed or fail. So if you're a writer, start writing. If you are a speaker, have local meetups. Use your best powers to help. It's really, we are decentralized, but we're way more powerful together.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. I just have some fun questions if you're up for them.
Yeah, I like fun.
Love and hate. Great. So can you tell me something that you love about the crypto space? Then I can ask something that you hate.
I love that there's absolutely no rules. I love that you can be whoever you want to be. There's plenty of anonymous people out there, and there's plenty of people who want you to know who they are. So you can choose your own adventure and succeed either way.
Yeah, it's a great way. Well, led by Satoshi, I guess.
Yeah, and I actually, side note, I got to meet Dorian, and I had breakfast with Dorian, which is like, I think way better than Warren Buffett.
That's awesome.
So and it's the thing. It's like Dorian is just awesome, and he's his own person, and the guy's face has been used, as the face of this whole movement.
Dorian is the face of Satoshi Nakamoto because someone in the press found this person who was named Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto, believed that it was Satoshi who created Bitcoin. Turns out he has nothing to do with Bitcoin, but now he's the face. Because I guess we need a face, or it helps to have a face. And he's, seems like a great guy. I met him as well at that conference, and, just down to earth, super great guy. And you're saying you had breakfast with him. So
yeah, and we talked about trains. We talked about modeled trains. Like, it was just so beautiful. There was no nothing. He's just a nice, normal guy. And I think it's important to also look at everybody in this space as normal people. There's no one's better than anyone else. Vitalik is a super smart dude who codes, right? And people making gods out of these people, I think people can take things a little bit too far and also too seriously. I think, having fun, like you were saying, is super important in this space.
Yeah, and as much as there are icons, like you were saying, the more you do these portraits, then these figures become larger than life, and especially over time. But I think the principle, the ideology behind Bitcoin and decentralization is this kind of leveling of the playing field and making everything and everybody important. Is there something that you hate about the crypto space?
I hate when people are taken advantage of. I hate when people are lied to. I hate when people think they're getting one thing and they get another. I hate egos. I hate. I just think that people deserve the best, and when someone takes advantage of that, um, I think they know what they're doing, and I think it all comes back around.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like karma. Do you believe in karma?
Yeah, I do, and I think that people get to choose their own. Like I said, they get to choose their own fate. So if you want to scam somebody for 100 mil, then best of luck to you. I don't think it's going to end well.
I believe in that too. I hope it's real. What about our society? Can you tell me something you love about our society and something you hate about our society?
Something I love about society. I think ingenuity and problem solving are things that I love about society, and I urge people to apply more to their life. I think that there's always a solution to whatever's going on, and when you see people who have figured that solution out, it can give other people that inspiration to do the same.
Hmm.
So I think there's a lot of good people out there who want the best for others, and I love when those people can make a difference. And kind of on the flip side of that, I assume the next question is what I hate. Um, I think it's also the people who um, distract people from doing the things that they need to do, whether that's in media or music or movies. I think there's a lot of people in powerful positions that are put there to keep us sidetracked from doing what we need to do. And people will get wrapped up in their favorite Kanye song, or whoever the flavor of the month is. And I think that we need to also look at how we're spending our time and how to best make use of our limited time of being alive.
Hmm. Do you schedule your time? Do you find yourself scheduling your day to be productive, or how do you manage your time and your tasks?
I would say I put them into buckets. I wouldn't call myself an organized man, but I get everything done. In terms of, I work, and then I have a family, and then I have my own time. And usually that's the order. Well, family and work are usually about balanced. Then my own time is whatever's left over. So the way I manage that is, if I want to do something with my own time, I am thinking about that while I'm doing other things, so that when I have that 20 minutes of me time, I can get 2 hours of work done. I don't have to think about what I want to do. I just execute it. So that's probably the organization that creatively has helped me the most.
Hmm. Yeah, and I guess as an artist, you probably have ideas that are coming to you kind of all the time, and you're developing those whenever you have, you know, transition time kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely the blessing and the curse, right? They're always
You
they're
can't.
always flooding they're always flooding in, and half of them are shit. But the ones that are good, you have to make these little mental lockers that you put them in. And then, like I said, with the t-shirt project, it was in my head for 10 years. So getting that one out was great, because it freed it up for something else to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you think that there's only so much room that you have to kind of get something out so that there's more space for the next thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have too many ideas, they all get kind of watered down. If you're trying to figure out too many things, you'll either forget a couple good things, or when you execute them, they won't be to their best potential.
Yeah. And how do you know if something's good? You're saying like there might be a shit idea, there's a really great idea. How do you like actually decide what you think is going to be good or not?
I've actually gotten better with sharing my ideas
Mm.
with people instead of keeping them in my own little incubator until they're done. I used to be super worried about someone stealing an idea, or I've had, you're in film, so I've had, I'm writing a book about the gold rush, and I've been writing this book for you know 5 years. Just when I have time, or some inspirational scene will pop in my head, I'll write it down. And for the longest time, no one ever laid their eyes on those words because I was sure someone was going to, take it. But now, I have friends that I'll just say, hey, would you mind reading this and like picking it apart? And I think that helps, whether it's writing or art, to just show it to somebody and just to get a different perspective. And it's not the law of the land, what they say, but if they think it's needs work and then you look at it and you're like, oh, you were right, and then you start finding holes in it, it could save you years of work if it's just not meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think valuable feedback from someone that you trust and respect is like invaluable, basically.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, just got some screaming outside. I don't know what it is.
Someone screaming?
It's like a child.
You can go check on that if you need to. That's fine with me.
I don't know what it is. I will go take a look, but
Yeah.
anyway, but maybe we'll just end it here. Really,
That's a good reason. Good public safety.
yeah, really appreciate chatting with you. And
Yeah, thanks for having me.
it's been great talking to you. Wish we had more visuals, but we'll put a whole bunch of links so that people can find your work.
Yeah, is it a video stream or is it audio?
It'll be audio, and then we'll put something on YouTube.
Okay.
Both.
Yeah, just let me know. I'll get everything you need.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, take care. Bye.